Hi folks, I got galvanised into making this video because I read a post recently by a lady who didn't support the millions of women marching in the US and around the world on Saturday, because she considered that it was probably a bit of a whinge fest, if I can call it that, that she can make it on her own and so can everybody else, that she can make all her own decisions on her own, and people who don't have the same opportunities as her, well, that's their fault, because we're all individuals and individuals can rise to the surface if they so choose. Well, actually, I think personally that is one of the biggest con tricks that's ever been played on people here in Australia, in the US and in Britain, that you don't need other people to survive. I mean, it was Thatcher who talked about there's no such thing as a community. The fact is, we all need people to survive. Our parents, for a start, who give birth to us and care for us, sometimes in a very good way, which helps us go further in life, sometimes in a bad way, which makes life difficult, sometimes just in an ordinary way. But the essence is that if parents love you and they do their best, then they give you a helping hand to work in society as a compassionate, loving human being. However, if you have a look at what's been going on, for the past, probably since World War II. In World War II, we all learned to work together because we were fighting a common enemy. And that continued quite a bit, except they started creeping in this fact that we're all free to do as we want to do. We're all free people. We can all make our own choices. If we succeed, that's because we tried, and if we didn't succeed, that's because we are a pretty useless bunch of people. And it's all our own fault. So of course that was pushed by Margaret Thatcher when she talked about there's no such thing as community. It's all individuals for ourselves. Let's be selfish. Let's grapple on the ladder to get as high as we can and stamp on the heads of people below us. But the reality is that we live in a society where we rely on each other. We have teachers who help us, some do, some don't. I was very lucky at school because I had great teachers right the way through. But those in the lower grades had what you might call teachers who were there on sufferance. And they were pretty poor teachers, and those who didn't have it quite as good as those of us at the top slipped back on the ladder. Not because of their fault, but because they had bloody lousy teachers. So let's go on a bit about this. If you go to school, you're in a building that's been built by someone. Someone's built that building and you're participating in it and you benefit from it. And if you drive to school in a car, someone in the world has helped make that car. In fact, a community has helped build that car, because no cars are built individually ever since. The same goes for the school bus that might take you to work. And what about when you are working? When you go to work, do you have the privilege of a good train line so that you can rely on train workers to get to work? Or do you have good communications via buses? And then again, you need buses that are made by other people and are driven by people who work to help you get to work. So there's that little community around you. There's the people who built the roads. There's the people who built the buildings where you might work. Without them, you'd be living in the open air and working in the open air, wouldn't you? There's the people who help provide the water that you drink. There's the people who help provide the electricity, who work in power stations. All of these people are part of a community, and we support each other. None of us is an island, as I might mention from that poem from the past. We all rely on each other. If you go to the supermarket, then you rely on farmers and farm workers who have picked their goods for you, and so on. So this lady who reckons that she can do it on her own, well, all I can say for that is absolute bullshit, madam. And the other thing I want to take you up on is this whole idea that, if we turn up at marches in our millions and we're wearing pussy hats and we are behaving like nice, good ladies, well, tough luck. I don't want to be a lady. What does a lady mean? It's something that people bring up to keep us controlled. If you shout, you're not a lady. If you get angry, you're not a lady. Well, screw being a lady. As far as I'm concerned, I'm happy not to be a lady. I'm happy to be a woman who is passionate about her life, and I certainly won't be held behind the false bars of being called a lady and hoping to remain a lady. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was tens of millions of women don't just march around the world because they happen to feel a little bit peeved about their own circumstances. They march because they're part of a community. They march in solidarity, not just with women in their own country, but with women in other countries. I mean, women around the world are supporting those women in America who are fighting for their reproductive rights, who are fighting for equality, who are fighting for maternity leave, who are fighting for equal pay, because you don't have it in America. Women in Australia do, women in Europe do, women in many developing nations have much better provisions for women as mothers, as workers, than they do in the United States. So what we're doing when we jump up and down about Donald Trump and his billionaire class is we're standing as a community with women in America. We're standing in community with women in Australia. We're standing in community with women in Egypt, the Philippines, China. We're around the world. We all stand together because women have the same concerns. But the other thing I wanted to point out, thinking about this, is that really I think we should thank Donald Trump. Mr. Trump is a complete and utter bastard. There's no other word to describe him. Utterly self-centred, greedy, and really mentally unbalanced. There's no other way you can describe him. But what he has actually done is lanced a boil. He's let fly out from that boil all the racism, all the hatreds, all the nasty little shibboleths that keep us separated from each other. You know, we're one. If we're white, we're better. We're a bit better than Latinos, perhaps. And Latinos are supposed to say, well, we're better than Mexicans, and so on and so on and so forth. We're all in competition with each other, which we're not. And that, I think, is the important part of what is happening at the present time. We have a community of interests, we, the 98%. And what is very clear is that Donald Trump really is the stalking horse. There's a bit of smoke and mirrors going on. I mean, he might be up the front there, so, whoa, I'm a big bad man, I'm going to do this, that and the other because I'm so macho, even if I've got little hands. But behind him stands a billionaire class, and we have never seen them operating so openly as we are seeing at the moment. Not just in America, in Australia, where the mining corporations just straddle the economy, pay no taxes and demand lower wages. In England, in the UK, where the billionaire class again is just sucking the country dry without paying the taxes that it should pay, or big old corporations from overseas, from America, domicile themselves in Ireland where they pay less taxes, so they don't act as good citizens and contribute to the welfare of people in Australia, in England. And it goes on and on. But we are now seeing them out in the open. If you have a look at Trump, for example, he was the one who was going to clear the swamp. Well, he's jumped in the swamp with the billionaire alligators. Well, you couldn't be richer than the people that he's amassed around him, and they are the ones pulling his strings. If you focus on Trump, he's focusing on the smoke and mirrors. We need to be saying that we are no longer going to put up with those people who enrich themselves so much that they are making the rest of us much poorer. And that goes back to what this woman was saying. Oh yes, we can make our own decisions, we can be in charge of our lives, do-da, do-da, do-da. No, we're affected by decisions that the billionaire ruling class make. When you have a look, all the laws that they make that ensure that they pay less taxes and that more taxes are paid by the poor, or they cut the pay that goes to the poor to help them survive, that sort of thing. So my view, as you know, there's many views going around, but you know, it's a bit like a melting pot. We're all chucking our views in, and then eventually there'll be some kind of consensus emerge about what's going on. All I wanted to say was that we need to stand together. Ideas that divide us are dangerous. When we stand together, we are strong. We may not succeed every time, but we may do very well in holding people back, or we may succeed, because you don't succeed if you don't try. Have a look at the Standing Rock protesters. They have been an absolutely wonderful example of standing up for water and for land that belongs to the Sioux of Standing Rock. And that's what we need to do in the future. We don't need these prissy little madams sitting at home telling us how wonderful they are and how they can succeed on their own. We need to stand together. We need to be together. We need to work for people who are gay. We need to work for people who are trans. We need to work for people who are disabled, and not for them but with them. And we need to work with people of colour. We need to shout when black people are killed indiscriminately, not just in America but in Australia and England. You have a look there, and the numbers that are killed by police is just appalling. And it's all of us need to stand together to fight back, to organise, and I think actually to look to building a whole new way of living a community where we support each other. I mean, when you look around the world today, you see wonderful examples of people helping each other, of people going out and helping the homeless. I've just read of a restaurant where the rich pay for breakfast and lunch, and what they've paid provides free meals for the poor and homeless in the evening. And there is so much of that around, the good news of people with warm hearts, compassion, love, tolerance, who don't judge people by appearances, but who look at people and just say, these people need help and I'm going to give them help. So what we need to build is a community of hearts, of those of us who love. We don't judge, we love. We work together, we stand together, we hold our backs together in solidarity, and we work towards building a completely new society which isn't based on greed, which isn't based on contempt for the less fortunate, but is based on love for all of us, because we are all worthy in this community of love and support and being taken care of. That's it, folks. Rent for the day over.